you're young and you have severely damaged lungs.
Wow.
Are you a chain smoker? Do you have a history of that? I said, no, I've never put a cigarette to my lips. When my son was eventually born, sometimes I'd be playing with him and I'd just faint. And my wife had to have a conversation with me. I'm really sorry, babe, but it's not safe for you to be with him alone. And I understood that. Like, Lord, how does this make sense? I just really want to be here for my family and just being part of a wonderful church community.
So do you think it is okay to cry, especially for African men? What does it do to a person psychologically when palliative care comes into the matter at the age of 33? I mean, it's end of life.
You're going in. I just submitted myself, really, because, you could die on the table. It's a very complex surgery, usually over 8 hours. After the transplant, sadly, some people don't wake up immediately.
What problems do you think Africa should be paying more attention to at the moment?
The African possibility. Your narrative starts now. Your narrative starts now. Welcome to the podcast.
Today on the African Possibility podcast, I am joined by a remarkable guest, Sonsare Zabadi, whose life story speaks powerfully to resilience, faith, leadership, and the strength of the human spirit. At the heart of his journey is a deeply life-changing experience, undergoing a double lung transplant. It is the kind of story that makes you pause and think about the fragility of life, about breath itself, something we often take for granted until it is threatened. Sonsare's story is not only about a medical miracle, it is about fear, waiting, vulnerability, recovery, courage, and the quiet determination to keep believing in tomorrow. In this conversation, we explore suffering, survival, faith, identity, purpose, leadership, and what it means to keep choosing life after walking through some of its darkest valleys. This is a conversation I believe will stay with you long after it ends. So settle in and let's get into it.
Take us back to when you started that journey to get to the mountain, to the height of that mountain, and you realized that it was not just about being tired. When did you realize it was not just being tired, or there's something more than being tired with the breathlessness?
Okay, so a bit of context.
Yeah.
I traveled back to Cardiff
Right.
in 2018. It was March, and I remember the date so well because
Right.
the very next month I was going to get married.
Right.
So my pastor and some friends from church said, there's this, the highest peak of South Wales is called Penavan. Why don't you, we would like to go and climb and catch the sunrise at the top.
Right.
It's so beautiful. And I
Right.
thought, wow, this is really good.
Yeah.
And my fiance, who's my wife now at the time, told me, you can't, some people train to do things like this. It's not something you can just go and do, but
True.
I'd already committed to it. So I just thought, why not go and do it? And so 5 minutes into the climb, I felt breathless in a way I'd never felt before.
Wow.
It was just really shocking, but, I carried on, tried to persevere. At some point during the climb, I felt a rush of pain to my heart. And I felt like, I was asking myself, is this a heart attack? It's just a very terrifying experience. But then I was stubborn and persisted and got to the
Carried
top.
on, yeah.
But that experience left had such a profound impact on me. I felt I really need to go to a doctor to get checked.
Wow. Oh, interesting. So, okay, so take us through that. So when you got to the doctors, what was the diagnosis?
So at first I saw my GP. He sent me for some tests. When I got back, he quickly referred me to some specialists, consultants. And I remember my first meeting with the consultant.
Yeah.
He asked me 2 questions.
Right.
Have you ever been at a bomb explosion?
Right.
I said, I'm quite sure I haven't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I would know if I have.
Yeah.
And, are you a chain smoker? Do you have a history of that? I said, no, I've never put a cigarette to my lips because of childhood respiratory issues. Even being near someone that had smoked would affect me, or strong perfume.
Mm-hmm.
So he said, that's really shocking because you're young and you have severely damaged lungs.
Wow.
And that was such a shocking revelation, but also it sort of made sense because all my life, trying to play in primary school, secondary school, there was just some form of breathlessness, which I knew must have come from my history of having severe asthma as a child
Yeah.
and bronchiolitis and other respiratory conditions.
Wow.
So it was just shocking to receive that diagnosis.
Wow. So when your health declined and you had to stop sports, tennis, your blog, your business, everything you're doing, what was grief like to you? What did it look like to you?
That's a really, really good question. So I'm the sort of person who is, glass half full,
Mm.
very kind of positive, and I just find that to be my way naturally.
Yeah.
So I tend to see the positive side of things.
Right.
So if you knew me at the time, you wouldn't have even known maybe that I was dealing with some things because
Right.
I just take it in stride, live my life with joy, trust God and all that. So it was, for me, grief was very gradual, and I didn't realize that I was grieving the fact that my life was ebbing away and, things were coming to a halt. What really opened the door for me to explore that was a program at the hospital called pulmonary rehabilitation,
Right.
where you go, it's a session 3 days a week. You're a group, and I was the youngest in my group because people with lung conditions such as the one I had are usually older, maybe from their 50s and above. So we had different sessions. They were just trying to teach us, exercises we could do under the circumstances we were in. And we had a talk with an occupational health therapist. I'll never forget her because that talk really showed me that there were internal things I was going through I needed to deal with. And I needed to be honest with myself about the fact that my life was winding down and just deal with that entirely. So yeah, the grieving for me was gradual, but then eventually when things got really bad and I knew that, okay, it might be God's will for me to go home to meet him. It was difficult. I think what gave me great hope was knowing, just as a Christian, that, because Jesus has died for me, I would be with him in heaven. And that firm hope was such an anchor for me. And, I was worried at the time my wife was pregnant with our first child and just worrying how would they cope and things like that. But knowing he's in control just gave me such peace. Yeah, so that really helped me sort of deal with the grief I was facing.
Lovely. So you speak openly about your faith in Jesus and how much you believe in him in those darkest moments. Now, during those periods, was that faith shaken or was it strengthened?
That's another good question. I found that some days were really difficult. I just feel numb. And I found some days I think it wasn't more like angry at God, but like just questioning, like, Lord, how does this make sense? Like, how is this good? Sometimes, in the midst of trying to do a simple house chore, or when my son was eventually born, sometimes I'd be playing with him and I'd have a really bad coughing fit and, just faint. And my wife had to have a conversation with me. I'm really sorry, babe, but it's not safe for you to be with him alone. And I understood that, but things like that were so difficult. So I would say, like, Lord, how does this make sense? I just really want to be here for my family. And, so there were questions like that. Some other days, just being part of a wonderful church community, people would drop by, with food or just send an encouraging message. Or I remember my elders at the time took me to play mini golf and we went to Nando's. There was so much love around me. So there was just great hope that, even if I was to leave my family, they were surrounded by such amazing people who loved God and who would continue to be with them. So it was, some days were high, some were low.
Yeah, so talking about those days when you had to question God, kind of. Yeah, because sometimes I say it's okay. Because I mean, even in the Bible, David questioned God. There were times when he said, "Where are you?"
Mm.
Where are you? I mean, going through a lot will make you want to ask God some certain question. Job
Yeah.
did the same and all of that. I mean, there's St. John of the Cross calls it the dark night of the soul.
Mm.
And A.W. Tozer calls it the ministry of darkness, I think, something like that. So it's at that point where you pray and you feel like your prayers are just hitting the ceiling and coming back, like God is just silent,
Mm.
you know. But it's good that your faith was strengthened by the community you had, by family, got a great wife and your son at the time, and you felt really loved. And that can numb some of the pain, you know. And so it's I must say it's a very good experience. So what does it do to a person psychologically when palliative care comes into the matter at the age of 33? I mean, it's end of life
Yeah.
at the age of 33. So what did that do to you when you had to go into that?
It was really difficult. You know, sometimes when you hear a diagnosis,
Yeah.
you pray a lot. You know, many people who love you, who believe in God as well, pray for you. So it was really difficult to kind of allow the reality that, okay, God's answer might be, come home, son.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was really difficult. And being referred to palliative care and having them come to the house to check on me, and it's basically them just making you comfortable because that's all that can be done, really. The lungs were on their last legs, and yeah, I was just, holding on to God every day, but it was very, very difficult.
I can imagine. And in the middle of all of this, you're expecting your first baby,
Yes.
first son. How did you deal with that? Like, I mean, here I am at the end of my life,
Mm.
expecting a baby I've not seen and all of that. What did that do to you?
I just really, in fact, anytime I think about this, I'm so grateful for my wife, to make such major life decisions with
Yeah.
a man who is dying. Just showed, the extent of her love and really our trust in God for the future, not knowing what would come. Um, yeah, when she was pregnant for him, those were the days when things had really gotten bad and I was in such a bad state. And I would just pray to God, please, let me just see him. I got to that point where all I just really wanted was to see him, to hold him and see him. And sort of, then I would be happy. And the day he was born, the joy was so great. I held him and I told God, thank you so much, and really in my heart, I thought, okay, this is probably the last sort of big thing I get to experience in that sense. And it was amazing. We named him Barnaby, which is a derivative of Barnabas, which means son of encouragement, because that's what he was. And having him gave me sort of I don't know, I had resolved that if God wanted to call me home, that was fine. But then I felt, actually, I'd really like to be here. Some friends kept encouraging me,
Yeah.
don't give up, Sonny. Don't, we still believe God can move. So yeah, I was listening to that more and just sort of still praying. Like I'm totally fine with you calling me home, but if, you would give me a chance to stay, that would be amazing.
Yeah, so lovely. So there was a time, because I'm asking this question in context to Man's Search for Meaning, book by Viktor Frankl. I don't know if you've read that book.
No, but I've heard about it.
Yeah. And I will come back to that book. But there was a time you accepted you accepted death instead of surgery. Like, I would prefer to die rather than have this surgery. So what changed your mind?
Okay, so
Or give us a little context around the acceptance of to go rather than the surgery, and then what changed your mind?
yeah, so the acceptance of just dying was more like, we believe that Jesus Christ, because he died on the cross and paid the penalty for our sins.
Yeah.
When we die, we've just will wake up to a new reality, eternity with God forever. It's an incredible thing. So actually, your death day is not sad in that sense for those in Christ. For
Yeah.
you, it's obviously really devastating for those who love you and who are still here. But for you in Christ, it's
Believes Christ
it's
to die is
amazing.
gain.
Yeah, you'll see him face to face. So just having that great comfort was for me why I felt, okay, if this is what God wants, it's fine. But also practically, we looked at different, information on transplants, and the statistics were looking so grim.
Mm.
So me and my wife said, I don't know, like if we can go through this. So what was really important in that regard was my physio at the hospital. So you hear me refer to different people,
Right, yeah.
because people were, that's one of the beautiful things about my story. I was carried on the shoulders of people in hospitals, in my workplace, in the church, my friends in Nigeria, just lots of people who played that role in helping me. So my physio had a conversation with me, and I told him, I don't think I can go through with this too much. And he said, Sonny, it's an opportunity to live again. And he said, you know what, why don't I put you in touch with someone who has had a transplant? I was like, oh, wow, I had never met anyone. And he said he's had a double lung transplant as well. I would have to go through some bureaucratic sort of channels and go through a process, but I can make it happen. I said, I'd love that. And so he arranged for me to speak to someone. And yeah, he and his wife welcomed us, my wife and I, into their home, and they were so amazing. Like, we spoke for almost 3 hours.
Wow.
We asked them anything, and they were very open and honest with their own experience and how it was. And that was the turning point for us. Just hearing how sick he was and seeing how well he was, I felt, okay,
It's possible.
yeah. And that was kind of the turning point.
So at that point, you became open to the surgery
Yes.
that you were trying to decline.
Yeah.
So within 48 hours of being listed, Harefield had called you to say that we found matching lungs for you. How did that make you feel at the time? Being that you could be in that list for a long time.
Yes.
Yeah.
So before transplant, part of the, research and going down rabbit holes on Google, I learned that sadly people are on the waiting list. In fact, now the figure stands at over 7,000 people waiting on the list. And then it was similar.
And how many weeks or months could that be?
So for some people, I've met some transplant friends now who, had waited for over 3 years.
3.
And, it's quite a long journey. You never know, because God has woven our bodies in such an intricately wonderful way. We're fearfully and wonderfully made.
Yeah.
Such that things have to line up, antibodies, many different things for you to have a match. So it's quite an incredible miracle when you get called. So I actually got a call 7 hours after going on the list.
Wow.
Which was shocking. They told me we could call you anytime now, but I thought to myself, I can only hope a call comes in the next couple of months. So it was such a shock getting that call. And then I was taken down to the hospital in London, and the transplant didn't go ahead because they checked the organ, and if they are not 100% about it, they call it off. That's another reality people don't quite know.
Yeah.
I had known people who have been called more than 15 times, kept going back. Sadly, the organ wasn't fit for transplant. So it was the second call, which was just the day after. To get 2 calls within 48 hours, it's just incredible.
It's a miracle, I think.
God really, had a hand in bringing that together. So it was the second call, and I went to the hospital, waited, they did all the checks, and they came in and said, we're ready.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, this is quite interesting to hear and quite encouraging for people out there. It may not necessarily be a transplant. It may be anything, but just to have that strong faith that, God is there.
Yeah.
It's always there for us. So how do you carry on that reality that you live now, but someone passed so that you could live? Because someone donated these organs to you who has passed, and you carry them and you are hale and hearty now.
Wow, it's a Yeah, it's a big thing. I wrote a letter to my donor's family when I turned 1, when I was celebrating the first year with these lungs, and it was quite a difficult one to write because on one hand I wanted to just pour out my heart about how grateful I am, but also they've lost someone really special to them. So it's bittersweet in that sense. Um, and I think of her like, a lot, just, yeah. And I wonder, what did she like to do? Who was she? And what dreams did she have? And things like that. So you're sort of tied to this person in a very beautifully profound way. You've received this gift from them, but you can't say thank you to them in
Correct.
person. So it's quite a big thing. There are several things that has really impressed on me.
Yeah.
First of all, I think about how incredible it is that, Jesus laid down his life
For us, yeah.
for us. It's sort of, it's a glimpse, it's just a picture. Although with him, I call him the greatest organ donor, because
Donor, yeah.
he, it wasn't that he waited to die naturally before giving his organs. He laid down his life.
All of himself, yeah.
So it's incredible. I think donors' families really, deserve a lot of thanks and appreciation because they have the chance to say no. And you can imagine receiving the shock of losing a loved one and then being asked, can we take some of their organs? Even if they had signed up to the register, the family can say, this is too much for us, which anyone would totally understand.
yeah.
So I'm really grateful to my donors' family for, saying yes. And yeah, I'm here today. Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of people carry invisible struggles.
Mm.
And you carried one for years.
Yeah.
Yeah, before the transplant, from getting to that mountain and then getting through the diagnosis. What has that taught you about judging people too quickly?
It's taught me a lot. In fact, going through this experience has been, I never thought I'd say this. I'm really grateful to God for it. That's shocking to me because I prayed and cried many tears to just pray the whole thing away. But it's made me definitely more empathetic, and just graceful. You just never really know what someone's story, what the context is. And yeah, it's made me a lot more patient with people. I think just curious, ask questions, just be there for them. Yeah, that's something it's really taught me.
Yeah, so talking about that now, do you think African men are taught enough emotional openness, especially when it comes to pain, grief, and vulnerability?
I don't think so. Because I'm one myself, and I learned a couple of things about myself. I think you can either go several ways. So for me, who is quite like a positive person, there could be a sense in which you sort of are in denial about the reality.
Right, yeah.
So you just want to keep, like, I'm fine, and when you're really not. And, not maybe knowing who to talk to. If you have a supportive spouse like I had, you have someone you can cry, with and just unburden yourself. But I don't think African men sort of have, it's just the whole upbringing. You're a man. You're a big boy. Don't cry. Those kind of things. Yeah. So I think a lot of work needs to be done if you find yourself having struggles to take that initiative. If you feel ashamed to speak to people who are maybe close to you, or you think people would judge you, I'd highly recommend asking to speak to like an occupational therapist, or, these people are trained to sort of, help you come to terms with what you're dealing with. I know there's this verse in Proverbs, the matters of the heart are like deep waters. A man of understanding will draw them out. I think people that are trained in those ways are skilled to draw out things you didn't even know were there and help you come to terms. So I think talking is a very good kind of remedy to that.
Yeah. So do you think it is okay to cry? You think it is okay to just cry, like let it go, let it out? Do you think it's okay, especially for men, African men? Because we growing up, we're taught, men don't cry, boys don't cry, stop crying. Yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely. You
Yeah.
know, in fact, you're asking if it's okay. I couldn't help but cry many
Yeah.
times. You know, I came to the point where it was just really tough, and I needed to, you know, sometimes in private to God, you know, sometimes just breaking down and my wife holding me and just encouraging me. Yeah, so it's a natural thing, you know, I think that's why it's really important to be rooted in faith, because in the African context, you know, you're sort of to embody this sort of male image where, you know, our concern, and, you know, I can understand it's, if you cry, they'll say, if you cry, how about the people you're supposed to be taking care of?
Exactly.
You need to be strong for them,
yeah.
you know, but I think if we look at the fact that, you know, Jesus cried, he wept, you know, things, and he modeled, in fact, he was the prime man in a sense. He had everything in order. He had authority, he exercised command, but he also had that emotional side of him. I think it's important for the people in our lives to see those sides of us, you know, because it also gives our sons allowance to, you know, to express themselves when life is hard. Yeah, so I think it's something that, you know, helps. Yeah.
Yeah. So take us through the process of the transplant, from when they said yes, it's now, to take us through that process to when it was done, and then when you started getting better, and when you left the hospital, and life after then.
Yeah, so when I was in the room, that was the second call, like I said earlier. And when I waited for some hours, so had many calls with family and friends, you know, people called to encourage me, and and just waiting that long time, I was wondering, would the organs be good? Maybe it's not going ahead. Lots of questions. When they finally came to say, you're going in, it was, I just submitted myself really, because, you know, you could die on the table. It's a very complex surgery, usually over 8 hours.
8 hours.
There's just a whole, and even after the transplant, sadly, some people don't wake up immediately. So they're in a coma for days, weeks, and then they wake up, the whole muscles are weak. So they have to learn to walk again. So all these things were knowledge I knew, but I just told myself, you know, God, I'm in your hands. And there was an incredible transplant coordinator who was amazing. You know, she took me into the transplant room, and my wife couldn't come with me because our son was just 4 months at the time. So, you know, she was calling, and this woman was kind enough to let her communicate like on WhatsApp, and she was updating her every step of the way. So, yeah, she held my hand and took me in. And I went into the room, the anesthetists, there were about 6 of them. I was like, wow, this is serious. And they were just they were smiling. Everybody was calm. So that was helpful in keeping me a bit calm. And they even asked me, do you want to play a song as we put you to sleep? And I was like, wow, okay. I looked on the screen and I saw Coldplay. It's a band that, you know, I used to listen to growing up. And I was like, okay, yeah, you can play a song by Coldplay. So, and I went in. I woke up the next day, which was incredible. In fact, when I woke up, I thought, has this thing happened? There were many disorienting feelings, and I just remember just trying to cope with things, and it was like things were unreal, and there was pain, there were different feelings of dysphoria, and many sort of transplant patients would tell you it's just you can't explain, it's just a mix of feelings. And I went through that. A friend, a really close friend who I appreciate, came to visit me. He lives in London, and I was crying to him saying, I don't think I can do this. I had the transplant too, but I was like, I don't think I can go on with this. The feeling in my body and my mind was just quite heavy. But I was able to get out of the ICU and to the normal recovery ward. And there were just nurses, people who, you know, helped to encourage me, different dietitians, different specialties would come in to encourage me to eat because I didn't have appetite. And it felt like a long process recovering. There was a lot of pain because, you know, to put new lungs in you, they have to break your sternum open it and obviously cut through your flesh open. So they're breaking that big bone, your rib cage, and then putting the organ in. So the cutting yours out first, then putting the new one in with stents. So the pain, I don't know, some people, their pain threshold is great. Me, I was like, the nurses on the ward would tell you, like, I was like, I'm in pain every time. So they had to give me like 4 different things to manage, different.
Wow.
So it was, for me, it was tough. But yeah, like month after month, you could see an improvement.
Yeah.
And my friends that came to visit me in the hospital said, wow, like you could see my eyes were white in a way they hadn't been for like, for a couple of years. And like, you look so well. I felt so well.
Yeah.
And it was amazing. It was like new life had been breathed into me. So it was just wonderful to go through that process and come out on the other side.
And so after recovery, you go back home. And at what point did you get back to work?
So in the civil service, thankfully, you have 6 months
Right.
on full pay, which is incredible from a Nigerian perspective. Wow, that was so helpful for us because it meant I could take those 6 months and recover properly.
Yeah.
And when I went back to work after those 6 months, there was really great support. I had a phased return. So maybe, I think the first couple of weeks was like maybe 1 day, then 2 days, then they slowly built me back up into, so which I greatly appreciate because it was quite a big thing, thinking maybe I'll never work again, then going back to work. So yeah, it was an incredible thing to go through that.
Yeah, so going through all of these, I mean, one question has been popping in my head, like, what is that one thing that you are grateful for? I know, I mean, you've got millions of things to be grateful for, but what is that one thing? I don't know, I'm boxing you with that question. That one thing that you are grateful for, like eternally grateful for.
Wow. It's hard to choose. I've gone on to experience lots of things after transplant and had the opportunity to do lots of things which just blow my mind, are incredible on many fronts. I think definitely if I was to pick one highlight, without even thinking, it would be, the birth of my daughter. Yeah. From going from not knowing if you would have a child to then having another, it's just really incredible. And I grew up with 3 beautiful sisters. So I always wanted to be a girl that, just have a daughter. And yeah, so to have her is just really special to me.
Yeah, I know
so
you are.
grateful.
I know you are thankful for so many things. I'm sorry for boxing you into that.
No, that's fine. That's fine. I'll just go on and on.
Exactly. Naming people and things that you're grateful for. So I'm quite interested. Now, do Africans in the diaspora have a responsibility beyond personal success, perhaps to represent, build, or give back? Do you think we've got that responsibility beyond just wanting to make money and all of that? Do you think there's that big responsibility to want to give back or something beyond that?
Yes, I think, and this is something that I've thought about a lot in my time here, because, in this society, you have, like, you go to school and I know taxes are paid and, somehow people pay for these services, but you go to school, it's free. And at the time I did my master's, I know many students who would have student loans. And I think the price of their tuition was, our tuition was 3 times.
More than, yes. For
yes.
citizens, you mean now?
Yes.
Yes.
And you have a national health system. So when you're ill, you go. And in places like Wales, where medicines are free as well, it's incredible. You have a lot of safety nets to hold you. So there tends to be a sort of independence where your parents, you go off, you're working, there are no sort of commitments or expectations that you would support anybody financially, or because, to be honest, there hasn't been that much sort of sacrifice in that sense from your parents. But for us, that hasn't been the case. My parents were incredibly wonderful to me and my sisters. because everything, every hospital bill, every school fees,
Yes.
the many other things. You know, my dad was really passionate about education. He could have, helped us get through to university, but he wanted us to have a
More.
really good
Mm.
sort of foot forward. So he would say, if you're able to do well in your degree in Nigeria, I'll try and send you for masters abroad. And it was a real sacrifice from him. There are many things he would have loved to do, which he didn't get to do because he felt, I'm invested in my children,
Right.
like just to give them that good start in life.
Yeah.
So every day with me, I carry a sense of responsibility, which I feel is right. I know the conversations about things like black tax and all that,
Yeah.
but I personally would love to express so much gratitude to my parents in many ways, including, being able to make sure they don't have to worry about some things,
Yeah.
and I feel that's something Africans in diaspora would carry, and I feel it's right. We come from a community sort of society where, nobody stands alone.
Mm.
To get to where we are today, many people had to chip in. Many people were helpful on our journey. And I think it's good to then, when you come to a place where you're able to give back, to find ways to also pour into others, as people have poured into you.
Yeah. So after facing death so closely, you're like this inch away from death.
Mm.
Has your idea of legacy changed? And what do you now want to be remembered for, or what do you want to leave behind?
Wow. Yeah, that's a really good question. In fact, before the whole experience, I hadn't really thought about legacy, which is quite surprising to me because we all know that it's appointed, for man to die. It's bound to happen. But when you're in your early 30s, you just feel,
Exactly.
I have a
the
long
life
time ahead of
you.
me. So
Exactly.
you don't think. So this was a really helpful thing to have the transplant. And ever since then, even from my first week in the hospital, I just like, wow, Lord, I'm so grateful you've saved me. I really did
Mhm.
think, I would come to you. So my prayer to God was, please help me to, you know, um, anything I take on now, let it be something that you are behind.
Mhm.
I'm someone is quite creative. I come up with different ideas and stuff, but I wanted whatever I do to be things that, God is behind. And so, I think in terms of legacy, I'd love to be remembered as someone who loved Jesus, who
Right.
was strongly rooted in that. And from that foundation, that solid foundation, had such a big heart for people, for making an impact. So like with organ donation advocacy, which I do a lot now, I share my story and try to really connect with hearts emotionally to see the importance, to kind of hear the people who are waiting on the list,
Mm.
and see how,
Encourage them.
impactful.
Yeah.
Yeah, and lives in the future will be saved by you taking 2 minutes to sign on to the donor register and, having a conversation with your family, even if it's a WhatsApp message to say,
Yeah.
dear family, I've heard this person's story today and it really moved me to think about the future and people I could save. And, when I pass on eventually, and I'd love you to honor that decision. So that's something I'm really passionate about. So a Jesus loving person who from that foundation has a big heart for others and just gives, generously of the life that he has. That's how I like to be remembered.
Quite lovely. I remember you saying that you had signed up to give your organs
Yes.
before ever going through these challenges.
Yeah.
And when you signed that register, your aunt had come to berate you, like, why did you do that and all of that? But it made a whole lot of sense to her after you went through yours. Can you
Yeah.
take us through that story?
So so in 2012 when I came to the UK to do my masters,
Yeah.
there were lots of letters sent to our student halls from telephone companies, different things, just trying to get us to buy into And I received a letter from NHS Blood and Transplant. That was sort of the first time I thought about organ donation or heard about it in that sense. And when I read about it and I found out, it meant if anything happened and I passed away, my organs would be donated. I thought, I know my my spirit will go to be with
The Lord,
Jesus,
yeah.
and then my body is dust, as the Bible says, and it would return to dust. So why leave with things that are going to be life-saving to
for
others?
Yeah.
So it was a normal choice for me. And I would say a family member, when they heard about it, just were very, I think, and this opens up another conversation. I think in African society, speaking about death,
Exactly.
it's not something we handle well.
Exactly.
And
yeah.
organ donation obviously is linked to that because it's making you think and even think beyond. So, like, how would you take that kind of decision? You speak to us, it's very serious, just really wondering, like, why would you? That's quite a big decision. And
Exactly.
at the time, I just thought, okay. But then, obviously, fast forward 13 years later, I was seated with her in the hospital. And yeah, it's just like, Sonny, I understand now. And that's the thing. When things get really close and personal, that's when we think about it and see it in a different light.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know you've said it, but I just want you to re-emphasize. Do you think we should all donate our organs?
Absolutely. I think it's just such an incredible sort of legacy. To think that someone somewhere in the future could be a dad to young children, could be a mother, of children, could be anyone.
Could be a relative, honestly.
Could even be a relative,
Yeah.
Who is, would have been living a life that's very difficult and hard, then has their life saved and has such a quality of life that they wouldn't have dreamt of having ever again. It's amazing. It's massive. And I think it's something people should please do. Sign up and, have that conversation with your family to say, this is something I've done because I care about people. And yeah, you never know. I mean, I don't hope that anyone has to go through the experience, but it could be you. Like with me, when I signed up, I just thought, it's a nice thing to do. I didn't think much of it, but 13 years later, I needed it myself and I got it. So,
And I consider, putting all of these pieces together, I consider that a big miracle that within 48 hours after being on that register, that list of awaiting organ, you were called and there was a matching organ for you. It's such a big miracle. That's what I see. That's what I consider it to be, honestly. Yeah. So when you hear the phrase African possibility, like the name of our podcast is titled, what does it mean to you personally, and what possibilities do you think Africa is yet to fully realize?
wow. I remember the first time I watched the Marvel movie Black Panther. I don't know if you've seen it.
I think I've seen a bit of it. I'm not a movie person.
But yeah, it was incredible to me in the sense that here you had a nation in Africa that had, thatch roofs. We kept sort of the distinct aspects of our culture, the dressing, the speaking, that it had different tribes. But then you had a very strong leader who loved his people, who was not self-enriching, but really thinking of how to protect this society. They had high tech, there was advancement. It was just incredible. It was just like a dream, and that really sparked a lot of thoughts about the sad reality we have in Africa today, just with the governments we have. I think in general, the moral fabric of society is not where it should be. So we can look at the leaders and say, look at them. But sadly, the reality is if we were to be in the positions they're in, because of some ways of thinking that we've had for so long, we might resort to doing maybe even worse than they're doing. So it's just I think there needs to be like a mindset shift in a massive way. But like, I think there's great possibility, especially we see people like us who come out here. We come with a lot of experience, like from Nigeria, where I'm from. It's just when I think about growing up, the norm was for things not to work. So that alone makes you a very resilient person, someone who expects that things could go wrong. And so you become a good problem solver, a good maybe innovator, because we would find ways to work around circumstances that aren't ideal. And we come out here and we're able to excel and do great things. I think if we can sort of identify initiatives back home that are credible, that are impactful, and get behind them, either in terms of providing expertise or financial support, that's a great way we can make an impact. And there's great possibility there. Yeah.
Yeah, I like the idea of mindset shift or re-engineering. It's a very big factor for me because I think a lot of we Africans, back at home and even back at home precisely, need a lot of mindset re-engineering. And it's a very good point that you raised. What do you think about leadership in Africa? Do you think we are there, getting there, or not?
I think if you're talking of like leadership, maybe
Political leadership.
Okay, political leadership. Unfortunately, I don't think so. And I remember like really following the last elections that occurred in Nigeria and being so hopeful that, at the time, someone like Peter Obi would be president, and seeing how the whole process was conducted, with INEC, and like just feeling really distraught with the whole thing and feeling discouraged. That made me really, that's been my position, such that if, the next election's coming, I've told myself, try not to go on, watch Arise News and, just try and protect your heart but then to find that we have someone like a Peter Obi who
Still
is
on the
running
ballot,
gives me a bit of hope that people like this are now coming out and, have a really good chance of garnering support and helping people to see, no, we can actually, if we, don't resort to the norm, we can put you in. I think that's a hope for the future, that we may get someone in like that.
Yeah.
But at the moment, I just don't have hope for the direction in which we're going.
So beyond leadership, beyond political leadership, and I understand there's been a lot of shenanigans in the political sphere in lots of African countries and back at home in Nigeria. Beyond that, do you see any hope, any possibility elsewhere among the young ones, among whatever generation of Africans? Is there any hope that things will get better or things are getting better?
I would say, like when I look at the private sector, like fintech companies coming up and things, it gives me great hope. I'm seeing us producing things that are very impactful with such high quality and excellence. And I was watching the platform, some recent sort of conversations and presentations that occurred there, and just seeing the sort of minds that we have and seeing what people are able to achieve, with companies they start or movements they build. It gives me hope. I know there's that potential there. We have people doing it in their own spheres. If we can get these people more involved in kind of bigger decision making, maybe within the polity, that would be amazing. So I do have great hope because there are people living out really good leadership values and ambitions.
Yeah, honestly, within the fintech and other major startups in Africa and Nigeria, we've got a lot of great startups. We've got companies that are local yet global in perspective, global in their ideas. And some of them were here, some of them were in other parts of the world and got back home to do phenomenally great stuffs.
Yeah.
And it is something to, just like you said, it is something that gives a lot of us hope. If you put such people in office, they could do something.
Yeah.
A lot of people have said, I mean, Barack Obama have said, Africa needs strong institutions, not strong men, and all of that. We know we've got weak institutions. We've got a country that is highly dependent on aid. People like Dambisa Moyo have said, these aids don't help us.
Yeah.
In her book, Dead Aid, she outlined the fact that Africa can do better than getting aids and all of that. So it's quite holistic. The challenges are not just squarely leadership. It's a whole lot. But just like you said, and I agree completely that our generation, my generation and yours, and the younger generation are doing great stuffs out there. And I mean, what young people are doing in terms of startups and the fintechs and all of that is also pushing a whole lot of younger people to think out of the box and to ensure that we do it our way, we do it the African way and get Africa out of the woods. And I know that we'll get there. I'm very hopeful.
I hope so.
Yeah, we'll get there. So when you talking about leadership, how do you lead? Seeing that you sit in a managerial position at work, how do you lead systems or projects or people or ideas? What is your leadership style?
Okay, so I'm someone who gets really excited about ideas. I think the first thing for me is I really want to be 100% about maybe a project in a sense of believing in the vision set out for it. Because only then can I transmit it with such passion and, clarity for others to then buy into the idea and the vision and then carry it out. So I think that's really important because if you're sort of embarking on something that you yourself don't really believe in, then it will show.
Yeah.
It will affect even the way you approach it. And when you go to really hard, maybe steps in the road, it would be very discouraging. You won't have something to anchor you. So that's important. Another thing is we're all human beings. You see the difference it makes in how you approach people, just how you relate with them, just seeing everyone as a person of value and worth beyond even what they can do.
Exactly.
Like, first of all, they're human beings created in the image of God and they are...
So they've got value, they've got esteem and all of that.
Yes, and treating them respectfully and kindly and really anticipating that they're going to bring value to you. So that makes you listen. I think sometimes you can have your mind set on, this is how I want to achieve what I want to achieve. This is how we're going to do it. But I've learned along the way, like, your ideas are so much improved by other people. There are always blind spots. So I think leading on projects and coordinating people has shown me I really want to know how these people see it from their perspective, and it makes the whole picture fuller and richer. And then, just developing in terms of communication, making sure that, every step of the way, different stakeholders are very much well-informed. People feel free to ask you questions, to question the direction things are going, because the end goal is what's important. And so you always have to keep that in view and not let your kind of ego get in the way. So it doesn't matter where the brilliant idea comes from. It just matters that we get a brilliant idea and we're able to drive the project forward. So I think just being a good human being and supporting people and really trying to articulate your vision clearly and with the passion needed really helps to move things along. That's kind of how I view leadership and how I try to approach leading on projects and things.
So we should get you back home to vie for a political position. Because we need all of these kind of ideas. We need people to be respected, people to be appreciated, people valued for who they are as humans first, So how do you measure impact?
Wow.
Generally, at work, at home, in every sphere of life.
That's a really good question, because ever since I, for example, started my organ donation advocacy, is sharing my story, being to different workplaces and forums to speak and share, you do sit back and wonder, is it really making a difference? Are people, I think what really helps me is, what do I have to bring to the table? Am
Yeah.
I doing this with as much dedication, excellence as possible?
Yeah.
Yes, I tend to focus on what I'm doing and how, I do it,
Mm.
and sort of just leave the question of impact to itself, in a sense, so that I'm not kind of discouraged if I don't see, because with things such as this, you can't really sometimes tell the impact. Some people have come to me and said, wow, that really inspired me to spend more time with my children, to
Yeah.
see life for the precious gift that it is, and to see how important, it is to think of others there. So you have people come, but I think focusing on what you do and just leaving that impact to God is massive.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting. I mean, just saying these, like, people have said it has given them that thought of spending more time with their families and all of that because of your story and sharing that story.
Yeah.
It's so important. I mean, the thing for me is just go out there and do it, because you don't know, you may not be able to tell the direction of that impact.
Yes.
Somebody may say, look, I need to donate my organs. Somebody may say, look, I need to live in peace with my wife and my children and all of that. That may just be, I mean, so that is it. Impact could be in any direction, but we must go out and do that which we have been given to do. So what unique role do Africans in diaspora play today? What role can we also play as Africans in the diaspora?
I think we come from a very rich cultural heritage, and we have such a different kind of framework of thinking through problems, of seeing life. I think one thing we could really do for the context we're in is to engage with the context. And I found, because of like growing up in Nigeria, when I came here, even when I was in university, like during my master's, speaking up and challenging things just felt a bit scary to me. Because
like back at home.
Yes, I think our voices need to be heard
more.
It's very important, even for our workplaces, for different contexts we may find ourselves, because it will bring perspectives that are not here. So I think it's thinking of it like, I need to overcome maybe the fear of speaking up or not wanting to be seen as being too out there. I need to overcome that because I have a personal responsibility to bring value to any context I find myself. So I think that's one thing I can sort of think of, is we need to be ourselves, and we need to bring those rich perspectives and ways of seeing the world to the context we find ourselves.
Yeah, because for too long, Africa, we have been shut down. Like back at home, you can't talk, you can't. There are certain questions you can ask your
It's
lecturer
not
in class.
encouraged at all.
So,
Yeah.
you can say certain things.
Yeah.
But it now gives you that leverage to see that your voice can be heard. It gives you here. I mean, being here gives you that leverage, that opportunity to see that your voice can be heard. You can speak out, and you can be heard, and you can make your own contributions.
Yes.
In whatsoever way you can. So my next question is, looking at Africa, we've gone through a lot of challenges and still going through a whole lot of challenges from the north to the south, east and west of Africa. What should we be looking at solving? What are those problems? What problems do you think Africa should be paying more attention to at the moment? We could contextualize it, use Nigeria or any part of Africa.
Education.
Right.
Yeah, I think looking back at my education, it was good in a sense, but it was more sort of theoretical, not practical. If I were to, so it orients you to sort of come out, get a job,
Yeah.
but it should be such that if that's what you want to do, that's fine. But we need to build creators through our education, people who not only think of joining others to solve problems, but also think of seeing themselves as problem solvers.
Right.
If there's no job, I can learn a skill, I can develop something, I can build something. If our education is geared in that way, in an entrepreneurial sort of mindset sort of way, that will be a big, big change. I think that's a crucial aspect in which things could change, but also infrastructure. I think that's a key thing. Coming to the UK has been, in fact, till this day,
Yeah.
if you go to my house now, you see my whole wardrobe. My clothes are ironed. My children's clothes are ironed.
Yeah.
Why? Because growing up with NEPA in Nigeria, when light came, you quickly go and do all the things you need to light for. So that has stayed with me in such a way that, that still drives that practice.
Yeah.
But things like having, you have someone trying to start a business, maybe a tailor is running a business and
Or a
there's no
barber.
power supply. They have to buy a generator, hustle to get fuel. It's like, imagine if there was just power.
Constant power.
Constant, that's a big thing. It just really helps.
That alone will drive the economy so fast.
Absolutely.
That alone, yeah.
And Nigerians are very entrepreneurial. They're resilient. People have ideas. They want to work, but it's these things that hold us back.
I think it's our resilience that has made the country not implode.
Absolutely.
Because there's a lot of mess.
Yeah.
A lot of mess in the system. And every day Nigerians just wake up smiling.
And let's give, a shout out to the many comedians and funny people. Sometimes I see them on Instagram and, you just end up laughing for like half an hour.
Yeah.
We just tend to joke about things.
Yeah,
in a way
it keeps people going, I mean, it's been said that we are the happiest people on earth. I don't know whether we've gone down the ladder, but for many years, Nigeria has been like on the top of the happiest nation on earth. We're happy people. Wherever you find a Nigerian or an African, he lights up the room. He's the life of the party and all of that. And of course, shout out to all those who are making that possible. But again, a lot of mess in the system that is it's not encouraging. I like the idea of education in the entrepreneurial aspect. That is like problem-solving kind of education. Looking at problems and creating solutions to them. So education, I will say from what you said, is not just strictly sitting down in the class and have a lecturer in front of you or a teacher in front of you. It is building capacity and skills to solve the problems of Nigeria. And I say, to a large extent, Nigerians are doing all of that. We just need that encouragement. So just like you said, and rightly so, infrastructures and all of that. And across Africa, we see that. Bad roads, hospitals, no medications, quacks in the hospitals. We've got no energy, no constant power, and all of that. But I believe we're getting there. I see, just like we said earlier, with the younger generation, with the young people in my generation and yours doing phenomenally great stuffs.
Yeah.
We are getting there gradually. And we'll get there not on the backs of the current leaders we have, no, on the shoulders of young people like you and I who are doing all sort of things to get Africa out of the wood.
Yeah.
So when you think about Africa and the current generation of young people or the younger generation, if you like, I don't like calling them, I don't like saying Gen Zs, because when you say Gen Zs, a lot of it comes with a lot of negative connotation,
Yeah.
But when you look at the current generation of Africans, what excites you most? What gives you that chill that we're getting there?
They have sort of a freedom of mind that I didn't quite see with maybe our parents' generation, even us.
Yeah.
They seem more kind of keen to create things, to approach situations and build things, which I think really is a shift from the mindset of someone will give me a job to like, I can create a job, or I can, stand on my 2 feet and make something of myself. That's really encouraging because the more of those people you have, they would create not only opportunities for themselves to be self-sufficient and thriving, but also create opportunities for others
Yeah.
and think creatively in ways that maybe we haven't before. So I think that's one thing that encourages me about, the younger generation.
Generation.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. So, what is one lesson that your journey has taught you that you think others out there need to know and hear?
Wow.
You could mention 2 or 3.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. That's really helpful. I think coming to a point where, you're looking at death face to face, going through that has taught me the most important thing really in life is being reconciled to God. Because at the end of the day, it all
Right.
ends.
With him.
It all ends, and what's the reality after that? So
Mm.
I think that anchor, that grounding really helps massively in such a way that after you have that sorted, you can live life purposefully. Another thing is, I think, attitude. Yeah, having that character of someone who is humble, someone who respects other people, that opens doors massively. I've experienced it in my life, just being really invested in people and having a generosity, about you where you're not always thinking, what's in this for me? But you see people building things and you really want it to succeed and you want to help them. It just gives you that joy to add value to things without thinking of what value is being added to you. But guess what? When you do that, yeah, you find that you improve as a person and, you do build connections and relationships, which, yeah, just really affect you in a massive way. So I think the character you have and grounding in faith is really, really important.
Yeah. Thank you very much for that. Now, if someone is listening to you right now who is facing fear, uncertainty, stress, depression, fear, and going through maybe some failing organs and all of that, what will you say to them now?
Did I need to hear? I think it's important to be very honest.
Mm.
There's a sense in which people don't want to even entertain the idea that things could end badly, but that's not honest. I think you have to be very honest that this may end in death or I may
Otherwise,
live
yeah.
on. So then the question becomes, in the light of the fact that I don't know what the future is and it could be anything, how do I live today? And the only thing you can do is put one foot in front of the other. Just take each day at a time. Don't try to think too far ahead. Lean on relationships. I think, sadly, these kind of experiences have a tendency to drive you into yourself and seclude you from others because you feel people don't really understand. And to a great degree, people may not be able to really resonate with what you're going through.
Yeah.
So it's helpful to find maybe communities of people who are going through these same things because you'd find that camaraderie, you find that support and encouragement. And for people of faith, absolutely just hold on to God, if you're in like a community with fellow believers or that's massive. Just really avail yourself and let people support and help you. It's definitely a journey which is difficult and almost impossible, I would say, to travel alone. You need people. So
And support, yeah.
yeah, just really try to keep your head up and, have that encouragement from people that you need.
Yeah. Yeah. So as we come towards the end of it, I'd like to ask you our signature question. I know we've talked about African possibility and the hope and all of that, but just want to put this into context. When you think about the future, that's the context now, the future. When you think about the future, what is one possibility for Africans across the world that gives you the most hope when you think about the future? Yeah. That one possibility that gives you the one hope that Africa will get there.
The people, I think, just seeing the incredible things that some Africans in diaspora are doing, with the opportunities they're taking, and, just how they're really nurturing that to fruition. It gives me great hope because it means that, should the future require the opportunity arise that one of these people is able to have access to resources and the authority that would enable them, they can replicate some of these things or even do it on a larger scale.
Yeah.
So I think the people doing trailblazing and doing incredible things with what the opportunities they have gives me great hope about possibility for Africa in the future.
Right. Thank you so very much for that. The last question is usually the guest question. The previous guest or a guest will have left a question for you for the next guest. Usually they may not know them. You may not even know the previous guest or the one who left you the question. So I'm just going to ask you that question. And so the question is simple, quite simple. He asked, what are you out of 10? Quite a reflective question. What are you out of 10? So 1 to 10. What are you? Where are you?
Wow, it sounds like a simple question, but it's quite a complicated one.
Yeah.
Because we tend to think about our lives in different areas. So, spiritually, financially. So to say overall, wow, and it's you rating yourself.
Yeah.
I think that's a good question to ask God or my wife. But, I think maybe I'd say 7. Yeah, in terms of I feel like I'm in a really good place. Gratitude is sort of a daily thing for me, just my approach to life and how I feel mentally, but also the opportunity to make an impact in people's lives and contribute is there, and being there for my family, and so I think I'd give myself a 7.
Yeah. Looking at it holistically.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Thank you very much. Usually we'll always ask our guests to suggest a name or two of who they want to see on that seat or whose story they want to hear next. So that's up to you now. Tell us who you think should be sitting on that seat and telling his or her story.
There's a wonderful lady called Ifeoluwa Adeagbo. And she currently lives in the UK, but not in Cardiff where we are. But yeah, I think she's just really her ideas, her mindset, and just the work she's doing around legacy and just many things. It just really inspires me. I think she'd make an incredibly insightful guest.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, well, we'll try our best. We'll try. So thank you so very much, Sonny, for coming on the podcast. Thank you for sharing your story. I think this is going to move people closer to any or every direction that is positive, honestly, because this is quite an inspiring story. It's quite a touching story, and it's a massive testimonial. Thank you, and Sonsare lives on.
Thank you. Yes, he does.
Yeah.
Praise God.